Good day and welcome. Today, BTX is introducing the latest version of software from Net Display Systems, a very exciting, cost-effective, and easy-to-use solution called PADS4. I'm Kim Robbins, Senior Marketing Manager at BTX, and I'll be your host throughout this session. I'm joined by Chris Poulin, the Vice President of Technology and driving force behind all of the innovative solutions at BTX. To make this as interactive as possible, please use the question area on your toolbar, and we'll get to as many of them as we can throughout the next hour. Let's take a look at our agenda. BTX is the distributor and technical specialist for PADS4, and Chris will be taking us through a presentation and a demonstration about NDS and the power behind NDS's latest software version. As a reminder, when you work with BTX, you work with a team of people who take you beyond distribution. In addition to supplying many thousands of interface, integration, and systems products, we also engineer our own unique and patented solutions. We have deep technical expertise on digital signage, and our application engineers and outside sales team are both available to help you specify, purchase, then support your digital signage, professional AV, and broadcast solutions. One of our core strengths is our commitment to education and technical support. We do everything from lunch and learns, to product demonstrations, to webinars like the one you are on today. BTX is committed to standing by our customers every step of the way. Our full product line card offers thousands of products to make implementation of your projects run smoothly. Among the many key integration building blocks that we provide are custom cable assemblies, custom plates and panels, video extenders, signal distribution, and cable management. And now, on to our main topic of conversation. As a reminder, please feel free to ask questions throughout the presentation.
Okay, good morning, everyone. I'm Chris Poulin, Vice President of Technology for BTX Technologies. I hope you can all see my screen at this point in time. I'm going to continue on with the slideshow that Kim had up here. And I'm going to start by telling you about NDS. NDS was founded in 1994 and started creating their PADS product, which actually stands for Public Area Display System, long before digital signage was even considered, well, was even a phrase out in the industry. Their core focus is digital signage software. They don't do anything else. They're not hardware folks. They're not anything other than software developers, and they develop only digital signage software. They have an extensive partner network across the world, in over 75 countries, including BTX here in the United States, and you'll find them just about everywhere in the world, and lots of airports and corporations like Volkswagen and all the airports in Portugal and so on. So it's a very widely used product, and they have thousands, as I mentioned, of installations globally. The highlights of PADS4, and actually PADS3 I'm going to go through, for some of you who are familiar with PADS, the previous version, 3.1, I will go through some of the new things being delivered in PADS4, as well as showing everyone who's not familiar with PADS at all a bit about the product. You can design presentations with any possible content, and when I say any, I really pretty much mean any. You can, as a matter of fact, invoke any application that is on the viewer PC that is being used. So, for instance, you can open up Notepad within a presentation and other Microsoft products, but you can actually invoke any application that's available on the computer. Advanced scheduling of content, so you could do this weeks, months, years in advance. You could do simple scheduling, just one-off things, priority scheduling, so that a higher priority schedule will take over an existing presentation. Automatically distribute all of your content to the displays, and you have a lot of finite control over that. Smooth playback of content, of course. Monitoring and remote management of your network. Easy integration of real-time data. This is a place where PADS really shines, being able to leverage existing information from your everyday work life to take to your signage. Unlimited connectivity features to external systems, so you can, of course, connect to things like RFID readers and occupancy sensors, all sorts of things like that. There's a software development kit coming for custom solutions, and it's an open system based on standard technologies. So, like that SDK, for instance, uses standard .NET framework programming languages. So what's new in PADS4? There's a new graphical user interface that has pretty much been modeled after the Microsoft Office applications. So it's something that's very familiar to most of you out there, with a familiar ribbon on the top and a sidebar of tools that you can use. They've added a lot of new data providers. So in PADS 3.1, if you wanted to connect to Excel, you had to go out and grab a connection string. Not a tough thing. You can just get it from connectionstrings.com, but now the Excel drivers are just there. There's a specific one for SQL Server and for Microsoft Exchange 2007 and 2010. Very, very easy to connect to these things. The designer window has changed quite a bit as well. A lot of the elements have been enhanced with some new things. So there's transparencies for just about everything, reflections, shadows, flipping, rotating, things like that that make it very easy to do good-looking things with your content. They've added a content library, so there's a content organizer now in PADS4, which didn't exist in PADS3. In PADS3, all of your content and all of your media assets would be delivered to the players if you put them on your server, and the server would then pass them out. Now it's going to be synchronized for your entire network. So you can go and open up the content organizer and select folders that you want to have synchronized around the network, and it will do it. And that includes the designer PCs, the PCs where designer is running. So now you're not copying assets over to different places or wondering why a certain graphic didn't show up. It's just going to synchronize throughout your entire network. A simplified installation and configuration. So there's installation profiles. You can, of course, customize these things and install everything, every place if you wanted to. But it comes up and asks you, do you want to configure a viewer PC or a designer scheduler PC or a server PC? And in that way, you could just select a pre-configured installation. I mentioned before how all the page elements have been enhanced. The scheduler has been greatly enhanced as well. It's very much like Outlook with a lot of granularity in the scheduling. So you can do some pretty hefty recurrent scheduling. You can schedule a playlist of presentations. So if you had a bunch of short presentations you wanted to show throughout the day, that's something new that you can do. You can even go in and edit the schedules so that certain slides don't show. So you can just put the presentation up and tell it, don't show slide 3, and off it goes. There have been some enhancements to the viewer to aid with a smoother playback of content. And there's now a software update mechanism. So that's something that you can go, and it's just a button that you click in the applications, and it will go out and check to see if there's a newer version of the software to update, and from there you can update. The main applications, and PADS is a suite of applications, are the designer software. That's where you would be assembling your content. The scheduler, and that's what you would use to deploy your content to the viewers. And as I mentioned, there's a lot of granularity with that. There's unlimited grouping of players, so you can create groups of players. If you have several groups, they're going to be showing different content. The server, of course, which is basically the traffic cop of PADS4 and will manage all of the content and where it goes and how all the content synchronizes, including the content library, as I was mentioning before. And then the viewer, which is what is actually going to be running on the media player that is connecting directly to the screen. And there are different versions of the viewer based on what you want to achieve. And basically the thought process behind that is why pay for functionality that you're never going to use? And you can mix and match these within the same installation. So for instance, you have a group of players that's only going to be playing playlists of images or something like that, then you could use one as opposed to another that would use video and other applications. And so as I mentioned before, design with any content possible, large collection of page elements, master pages for consistent layout. So you can go and create a master page, and I'll actually show you that later, so that you get a consistent layout throughout the entire presentation. Database connections for real-time data. Dynamic rules for conditional content of display, and this is a very cool thing. So you're all familiar with airports and things like that. So if a flight is boarding or something like that, that particular line on the flight information display system might change to red and start blinking. Those are the types of things you can do, and that's just a very simple application of it. You can do other things based on rules like, you know, emergency notification and things like that. And of course, support of interactive presentations, and that includes interactive elements as well as using these rules to interact with your presentation. The scheduler, very easy. It's a wizard-based scheduling element. Unlimited grouping of displays. As I mentioned, recurring schedules are very granular. Priority-based scheduling, and they do have some preset priorities, just low, medium, high, but you can set your own priorities, as a matter of fact. You can change the schedules on the fly, as I mentioned before. Role-based access to the displays or zones. When they say zones, they're talking about their zone viewer element, which actually doesn't use an extra license, but will show up within your presentation as a separate media player. So when you open up the scheduler, that zone viewer will be showing up as if it was a media player, and you can schedule distinct presentations within that zone viewer, and you can control the access to that. So for instance, you can give someone access to just that zone viewer, and they don't have the ability to go and impact the entire presentation. And as I mentioned, you can schedule playlists of presentations, which is something very, very new and very handy. The server, as I mentioned, targeted distribution of content files. So in their system management application, which is part of the server, you can actually go and create content types and add access to those content types. Automatic distribution of the scheduled presentations to the displays. Auto collection and distribution of real-time data. There is a database so that you can actually collect that data and send it out from your server, as opposed to going and grabbing it directly from where it's coming. So like, for instance, today I'll show you an RSS feed that will come directly from the internet, but you can actually collect that data and resend it out. Distribution of your content can happen over anything that works as TCP/IP transport. So LAN, WAN, 3G, 4G, you name it on your internet or internet. A minimum network load on this, you can control. You have very finite control of the windows when you do synchronize content. And as I mentioned, there's a content library that will synchronize across your entire network. The viewer, of course, plays back scheduled presentations. You can view it at real size resolution or resolution independent, so it doesn't really care what the display's native resolution is. In fact, one of the unique things about PADS is that while it does have some predefined resolutions, you can go and create your presentation in the resolution of choice. So one of the new things you see out there a lot now are flat panel displays that are not standard ratio. They might be a third height or half height display. You can create your presentation in that resolution for that particular display. Local caching of information is a fallback to network failure, so your content doesn't stop playing if for some reason the network goes down. Compatible with interactive touchscreens, of course, and suitable for video walls. The PADS4 viewers are Expert, Express, Basic, and Desktop. The desktop viewer is not quite available yet. It's scheduled for the end of the year, and that is used for corporate communication. So you can actually go and put a sign up around the company. It has a predetermined run time, so it can't run all day long, but also has a way to make it pop up if there's an urgent message or something like that that the corporate powers that be want to get across to their employees. So as you can see, on the left-hand side we show the elements that are included in each of these types of viewers, and again, the pricing will vary based on the capability of it. So as you can see, the Basic has the least, Expressed, middling, Expert has all of it, and the desktop viewer has most of what the Expert viewer has. Okay. The roadmap for the future, NDS will be releasing an agent, and the agent is a management tool that allows you to manage your entire network of digital signage. So you can go and look at the health of your PCs, make sure they're running. There are watchdog timers that you can set. You can do reboots. You can update software through there. You can get all of your proof of play information and things like that. Not quite ready yet, but it's on its way. It does exist for 3.1. It works very well. The desktop viewer is coming. They're going to be bringing along a rich text format element. The SDK is on its way. The SDK already exists for PADS 3.1. Not quite ready for PADS4, but it will allow you to create custom interfaces and custom applications around your PADS4 installation. And they're looking at a cloud, bringing along cloud computing with Microsoft Azure in the future. All right, so right now I'm just going to kind of dig into the software real quick and give you a look at what it's like and how to use it. And if you have any questions along the way, please feel free. Any questions so far?
Nothing yet.
Okay, great. All right, this is the PADS Designer window, and as you see up here, it looks very much like Microsoft Office. And all of your tools and things like that will be found up here, you know, like your page elements. You'd be able to go and grab all of your page elements from here. You also have a toolbar on the left with all of your page elements that you can put in there. So simply said, if you want to put an element on the page, you would just click it. So this is a picture. I can grab it here, or again, I can go into Elements and grab Picture and drag it onto the screen. And what I'm going to do next is go into a right mouse click context-sensitive menu and go into the properties. And that's something that you're going to find that goes throughout PADS, and that includes PADS 3 and PADS 4. And this is where you can go and grab your information. So, for instance, I can grab information from my content library. I can grab a picture from a file if I wanted to. I could have references to images in a data provider, which I don't have running here, and I will show you a data provider soon. These are things you're going to find in pretty much all of the elements that you have. The play options is something that you would find in everything, positioning, so you can very precisely position and size your elements on the screen. Picture style, I can go and tell it I want a background color in case there's no image there. I can put shadows on it. I can do alignments for it. Again, I can put borders, reflections, skew. I can flip it. I can round the corners of things. I can tell it to be visible or not visible. And this is a very important thing. So if you have an element that is not going to be visible, you can make it visible with the rules. All right, so if a certain criteria hits, then what will happen is this will just show up when it's going to do it. Property bindings, again, this is something that's very new for PADS4. You can impact certain criteria or certain properties based on a data provider. So if a certain data are true, or certain criteria are met, you can make it visible or not visible. You can change the position of it. You can change the size of it. You can change the background. The rules, this is where you would be able to go and create different criteria to impact what's going on. So if something is equal to something else, then I can go and set my properties when I have a value there. So that is pretty much the way you get just about any element on here. So if I go here and grab a picture from my content library, do I have nothing in here? I can just go grab a picture, and I can grab a bunch of pictures. So if I wanted to go and grab another picture here, and I can create a small playlist of pictures. Not that you would ever want to show that particular one in a. And I can even grab things from files in a mixture with this as well. So I can go and I can look at my list of pictures. You can see the duration automatically sets itself at 5 seconds, but you can change that if you want. You can change the default effect, if you want them to dissolve from one to the other, right there. And again, that's something that's true in all elements. And then I can just click apply here, and there's my image. If I press F2, we're going to run that small little presentation, and there we go. We've got a playlist of images playing already. Simple as that. Any questions so far?
There are no questions.
Okay, great. All right, so so all of the elements kind of work like that. So there's a a web page element. We go into that again. Right click, and we can go into my playlist, and I can just dial a web page in here. Of course, I'm going to do btx.com, and then I can just apply that, and it's going to show up in there. Of course, not the whole thing because I didn't make it big enough, but as simple as that, it's actually kind of cool. One of the new things here with this is you can get a web page if you want. You can get HTML from a content library, or I could just go in and put snippets of code in here. So if I actually, if I just wanted to do, let's see, let me just do. And there we go. So I didn't even create an entire web page. It's just a snippet of HTML. And why is that important? That's important if you want to do things like use YouTube videos. So for instance, if I wanted to bring a BTX video in, I could take the entire embed code and put it in there if I like, and it'll play my BTX video back in a window in PADS. So that'll work with pretty much any of the social media sites that allow you to do those sorts of things. So Flickr and things like that would allow you to do those sorts of things, and as well as many other sorts of social media.
I have a question now. It looks like the template that you're using is a 600 by 800. Are there standard templates for 16 by 9, or do we enter the pixel by pixel dimension?
You can do whatever you want. As I mentioned earlier, so here we go. Looking at our ribbon on the top, presentation, predefined, and there are a lot of predefined items. I mentioned what you could do before because you can. So I can go and do a 16 by 9, and if I want to see the whole thing, I can zoom out down here. And again, that's something you'll find like in PowerPoint, so I can see the entire canvas, or I can go in and just dial in my own resolution, at a 16:9, 16:10, 4:3, 3:4 for portrait, and so on. So you can absolutely do predefined or dial it in yourself. Okay, any other questions on that?
There are some more questions, not necessarily on that, but can you add a border or shadow to your video or stills?
Absolutely, absolutely. Here, let's go and I'll grab a video element and throw it out here, and I'm going to go and grab something from a file because I know exactly where it is. Let me just go and get details. There we go, the Avengers. We'll go and do that Avengers trailer. And by the way, another thing you can do, you'll notice down here there's a little preview button, checkbox. So this is going to allow us to preview our element. So, but when you go into things like element style, I can go and I can select a border, and I can make that border, 10 pixels wide. And I can round that border like that, and I can change the color of that border if I want. And there we go. And you could do that with just about any element. So here I am playing this again. Here's another thing, by the way. With your preview viewer, this will do anything that the viewers can do. So you could really, truly see what's going on. So if you're doing something in 1080, and it's actually bigger than the screen you're working on, you can actually go and change the size of it and make it so that you can see the entire presentation. Another thing you can do, if you'll notice here, you can go and change the viewer name, and I will show you why that's important in a few moments. Okay, so I'm going to go and get out of the viewer right now. There were more than that question?
There. The floodgates have opened. So
okay.
For designer, what should the computer specs be to get the best performance possible?
That is a great question, and there is a system requirements document that NDS has, and it's not too onerous. It's like a minimum of a Core i3 or something like that, and 2 gig of RAM, and a reasonable and a tier 2 video card. What's that?
I said it's certainly something we can make available after the webinar as well, if anybody needs.
Sure.
That. Okay.
Sure. And I was just trying to call that up here real quick because I don't remember it off the top of my head. But it's again, it's not an onerous spec. Like I said, I believe it's a minimum of a Core i3, 2 gigahertz or above. 4 gig of RAM is recommended, although it'll work with 2, but not as well. And a tier 2 compliant video card out there. And it's similar for, and that's because you're going to be running previews on there. It's similar specs for the viewers, and the viewers will change based on what you're doing with it. So if you're running like 1080p videos and a crawl and other moving elements in Flash, all in the same screen, you're going to want to move up to better hardware like a Core i5 or a Core i7 with it. Next question.
Is there a PADS client appliance available to mount to the back of displays?
I'm sorry, a PADS client?
Client appliance, so something like the Media Messenger maybe.
Oh, it's a PC. So we do have our Media Messenger PCs are available with Visa mounts so that you can mount them to the back. So for instance, on Philips displays, they have their smart insert that allows you to mount things into that little indentation with Visa mounting holes in the back, and the Visa adapters will allow you to mount our items right to that. So if your preference is, A-Open or something like that, like their DE7000 or DE67, same thing applies. But it's a PC that you're going to be using. This is all PC-based.
Are there plans for making a Mac version of the software?
There are not. This is largely based on .NET framework. So the only way this is going to run on a Macintosh is by either using a virtual machine or dual booting the Macintosh. As a matter of fact, the computer I'm using right now to show this all to you is a MacBook Pro. They just happen to make some of the best Windows hardware out there as well. But for an actual OS X client, no.
Okay. Can you layer content? For example, can you do text over a video or a PNG frame with transparency over a video?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I don't have or do I? Let me see. I may actually have a PNG that I can throw over this video. Let's go and am I still in PADS? I am. Let's see if I have our overlay that we used for, there we go. So there we go. That's an overlay that we used for NAB a couple of years ago, and you can see that I do have a transparency in that image, and it's showing the video right through it. And something else that's new, by the way, in PADS is in the View menu, I can go and I can look at my elements and my thumbnails over on the right-hand side, for instance. So if I, for instance, wanted to, this to be on the bottom layer, I could just drag and change the position and so on. Oops. Did I actually do it? There we go. Throw my video and sound on top. So I can move it to where I want it to be and then put it back underneath if I want. So the answer to that question is yes. If you have transparencies, you're looking at it right now. We actually have the picture with the transparency sitting above the video. So if you want to do things like skin videos and things like that, absolutely.
Excellent, great. Somebody's made the comment, this is a very excellent product, so we thank you for that. We think so too. But they want to know a little bit more about the licensing scheme.
Okay, the licensing scheme basically works this way. In the old PADS, certain applications were free and certain weren't. For instance, you had to pay for the viewer, you had to pay for the server, but you did not have to pay for the designer. There's pretty much a charge for all of the applications that work here right now. And they're all designed such that they can connect to a server. And that's the important aspect there, especially with the new content library system that's been involved there. So basically what you would need at a minimum for an installation would be a server, a scheduler, a designer, and a viewer. So those 4 applications, you would need at least one of each in order to do these things. And the one that you would most frequently buy in multiples would be the viewer, would be at the top of the list, and then designer next, and then scheduler next. So, and there is a discount for purchasing additional designers and schedulers for the same installation, so under the same license. Okay, so and while there is a login required, so even the designer requires a login. If you don't have access to the actual server, it does allow you to work offline. But the importance of that login is that you may have multiple servers that you're working with. So you may have servers in different geographies, and you're actually managing multiple networks with different goals altogether, and you're going to want to be able to log in to those servers distinctly to make sure that the right content and everything is synchronized to the right place. So all of the applications do require a license. There are discounts for additional ones under the same server license. And Kim, the price list is something that you should be able to disseminate after the presentation, correct?
Absolutely. We have a brochure, and we have a link for a 30-day trial download, and so we have a lot of things that I'll be sending to everybody. And of course, your outside salesperson is always available to answer any questions as well. Okay.
Okay. And when the agent comes along, that will require a license as well.
Great.
Okay. Did that answer the question satisfactorily?
I think so. If not, we'll certainly revisit it after the webinar. So the next question, can this run on smart TVs with web browser support?
I don't see why not, but I don't know if it will be able to, and I don't believe it will be able to interact with that smart TV. Is that really the question? I mean, the TV should be able to display whatever you're inputting into it, and it should work just fine that way. But if the expectation is to interact with the web capability of the TV, I believe the answer would be no.
Okay, great. Gonna go, let's see. Can you do entry and exit animations?
Yes. Each element has an ability to, and in fact, each page has the ability to have a transition effect. So for instance, if I go back into the picture properties, I should be able to go and set a default effect for this. So if I wanted this to scroll to the right, I could say OK, and when I run it, that's going to pop in to the right. And you could do the same thing with pages. Pages have effects that you can do on them as well. So if you look here, this page has an effect, and you see the X in there. I haven't done anything with it. So if I put that on and I remove the one that I put on our picture here and make that no effect, and then run that, the entire page will use that entry effect. So the answer to that question is yes. If you're looking for things like 3D effects, I don't believe there are any yet, at least not in this version.
Okay, great. What about a flash movie? Can you have an overlay or text over a flash movie?
You can layer anything. So if you notice it here, you can layer anything. So let me get rid of, well, I have my overlay in here. Let me get rid of my overlay. And I will go and grab some flash. So here's our flash element. I'm going to drag that in here. And once again, in holding with everything else we're doing, I'm right-clicking and going into the flash properties. And then I'm going to go and I'm going to grab a flash movie here, all right, which I should have, let me go get the Canon EOS guy here. And I'm going to take that And what happened to you there? That's really bizarro. It's because it's the wrong size. So, okay. So here's our little Canon video running here, and I can absolutely go and throw something over it. What did I do to this now? Hang on a second. Let me go change that to one that I know isn't quite so flaky. So grab the vines. All right. This has always been a pretty happy one. So you can see the flash running in here. I can go and take a text element and put it right over it, my text. And, oops, what happened to my text? Well, I'm being proved wrong here, left and right, aren't I? I don't know what happened here. You can absolutely put text in front of other elements. Let me go and do this again. I wonder if my Flash player isn't updated. And this does make use of the Flash player. Let me go here. Let's lock up the aspect ratio so that it well, that is hating me right now. That's a little bizarre. I have done this in the past, and I don't know why it's not. Oh, it's because the flash is on top. That's why. Come on, text. Well, that one's just got me, folks. So I'm going to have to say no right now because I can't actually show it to you, but I know I've done that. So it was being able to use Flash and throw text on it and also throw something with a transparency over it, correct, like we did before? And that should also work. And it looks like that Flash is on top of everything. It's showing on top of everything. So so the answer is no. Although I know I've done that before in the past, so maybe I did something wrong, and I apologize for that. So I will look into that, and we will get back to you folks at large, especially the person who asked it. We do have that recorded. Next question, Kim.
In what instance would you need more than one scheduler?
Oh, you could use multiple. So, for instance, I was explaining to you before about the zone viewer aspect. So let's say this is a university application, and you have the university as a whole message, but in the medical college, they have a portion of the screen where they can put their own content up, and then in the athletic college, they have their own portion of the screen that they can put a message on there. So you could put a zone viewer in each of those and assign one to the medical college and assign one to the athletic college, and then the main presentation would be for the university at large. Each of those would need to be able to design their content and schedule their content where it would want to go. Or if it's a large deployment, you know, let's say it's a national retailer that might do different things throughout the country. So someone might have charge of the West Coast stores, someone may have charge of the East Coast scores and so on. Those are instances where you might want more than one scheduler and more than one person to do it.
Great, thank you. Peter is actually on the line, Chris, so he actually just sent me a message that said web page and Flash are always on the top.
Okay, so that is a no to that, and my swearing that I had done it before must have been something else. So that's right from the folks at NDS. So web elements and Flash elements will always be on top no matter what, so regardless of what the layers are.
Thank you, Peter. Okay, how many content players can connect to each server license?
Oh, that depends on how many you purchase. So you could purchase 1,000 or you can purchase 2, and they can all connect to that server. Now, of course, the larger your network becomes, the beefier you're going to want your server hardware to be. So, and I should make the distinction here that for very small deployments, it doesn't have to be server grade hardware. We call it a server because that's its function, and the software functions as a server, but it doesn't need to be server grade hardware. But if you're doing something that has thousands of screens all connecting to one server, then you would certainly want to use server grade hardware with RAID and that type of thing. But that depends on your licensing. How many can connect. Whether it's going to be fault tolerant or not will depend upon the hardware that you choose.
Great. And again, we have both inside and outside technical people who are able to answer these kinds of questions and help with the design of the system, right, Chris?
Yes.
Okay, great. So expanding on the animations, is there a timeline?
A timeline for the animation?
Yes.
That I don't believe that there is. That will show. I mean, you can go and tell it, how long you want it to take, but I don't think you can actually view the timeline like you would in video editing software, which I think is kind of where this is going.
Okay. Okay. Again, if more clarification is needed, we can do it after the webinar. Okay. Is transparency supported in Flash?
That's a good question. Hey, Peter, you're on the line. Is transparency supported in Flash?
It doesn't appear to be the case.
Okay. So that would be a no.
Okay, and then jumping off the timeline question, is there keyframing?
No. Being able to look at each frame?
I don't know, because that was the extent of that question. So if that person would like to. No, creating starting and ending points.
You can do some of that. You can clip starting and ending points for a video, but not for the animations.
Okay.
Really, pretty much. I mean, if we go back in and look at some of that, if we go look at the effect, we pretty much have control of the duration and the flavor of it. Okay, and as far as what you can view here, I can go and I can see my playlist down here. I can see my elements and things like that. So you can go and view your element on a timeline, but not necessarily the individual animation. Does that make sense?
So here's a little bit of an expansion on the question. So like, what if you wanted an item to come in at 5 seconds and then leave it 15 seconds of a 45-second layout?
Understood. And that's a very good question.
Peter's saying use a separator in the playlist.
Okay. So you would use some either a transparent image with a certain duration, and then your next item in the playlist would be able to come in, and then move on to what you want to do is how you would do. And all of that would be launched back to the start time of the presentation itself. So you don't necessarily have the ability to take certain elements and schedule them by a time of day. You can schedule the presentation from a time of day, and then everything from there, from the beginning of the presentation, can be very precisely scheduled with as far as their duration is concerned and when it moves on to the next thing or the next page.
Okay. Peter also had another suggestion. The list is very long here of questions, so this is great. Peter said, Chris, maybe you can show the data providers.
Sure. Sure, yeah, we're moving on here. Okay. So data providers are a very important part of what PADS can do, and that is what will allow you to go and connect to data outside of your presentation. So to create a data provider, you would just go and click the data providers button. I would click add, and then you choose the flavor. And if you notice, all of these are the standard ones that PADS4 makes available to you, including, natively to Microsoft Access, Excel, SQL Server, anything that you can make an OLEDB or an ODBC connection to, XML, you can see it all here. So if we chose an RSS feed and just went, and we can go and call this CNN. I'll use CNN as our example. And then you're just going to be able to type in the URI. And one of the things that's going to happen here is as soon as I click next, it's going to text. So if this wasn't making a connection, if, for instance, I left off that S, it should fail on the way through, and it did not. Why did not fail? It tests your connection on the way through. You can tell it when you want it to refresh. You can filter the data. So if I didn't want anything about Syria coming up in this, I could do that. You can sort data above and beyond whatever sorts are in or would take over the sort. So if you were doing something from an Excel spreadsheet, you'd be able to sort data. You could add columns for current date and time and so on. And now it's ready to be used, all right? And in fact, you can go and preview it to make sure that you're actually getting the data. And so I'm actually grabbing this information right from the web. And it's available for me to use. So I can go and grab a scrolling text element and throw it on the screen. I'm going to right-click and go into the properties like we do everything else. And now I'm going to go into my data provider, and I'm going to tell it I want to go and use the CNN data provider, and the column I want to use is title, no HTML. And I'm going to tell it I want to scroll the data, and I want to scroll all of the data. And then you can go and you can tweak some of the other things, like where it's going to live, the scrolling speed, and so on. So, and I'm going to go line by line and make sure that that's all there. I can go and change the text style, so I'll make that background transparent, and I'll make the text black so that we can use it. You can show a border on this whole thing if you wanted to. you can create rules off of this information. And I'm just going to, oh, I should probably change the font, huh? So it's a little bit bigger. So let me go and do that. And, oh, I still have my, let me go make that a little faster. Sorry about that. Scrolling style. Make sure that it's actually going fast. Okay. And I will go and make that a little bit smaller so that you can see it all. And there you go. The text is starting to scroll off to the left, and I can make that go left to right, right to left, up and down, and so on. And I can make it go faster if I wanted to. But that's grabbing information directly from the internet. Okay? So another one that you can do, and I have this open here, is we can use a table. This is a table element. And I have created a data provider in here that connects to Microsoft Exchange. So if I go and edit it, you can see I chose Exchange, and I'm going and connected to Exchange 2010. I have credentials that I want to put in here. And I can go and I can tell it, and notice how it took a little while there. It was actually going out and checking and making sure that everything worked. So I can go and tell it what I want to do, calendar, inbox, and contacts, when I want to view data for, okay, and so on. I can give specific periods for all of those things. Again, with all of these things, you can add the date and time columns. You can filter data. Now notice in here, I have a thing called location equals viewer name. All right, now this is an important aspect of it. I can go and I can filter data based on what the name of the actual viewer is. And remember before I showed you that the viewer, or the preview viewer, I was able to change the name on that. And this is where that becomes important. So in the past, when you've done something like an event or something like that, it would, with other products, you would have to create a data connection and a database and a presentation for each thing. So let's say you were doing a trade show conference where there's signage throughout the place, and you have a door card for all of the seminar rooms, of which there might be 50. That would be 50 presentations that you'd have to create, 50 databases, and 50 data connections, and that's not what you want to do here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this single data provider. I'm going to use a single presentation and a single database, which is Microsoft Exchange, to show different things in different rooms. So right now, notice I have the blue ballroom. Let me make this a little bit smaller so everybody can see it. All right, so I have two events happening in the blue ballroom, okay? So I can go into my Microsoft Exchange, and you can see that I have things set up for the green ballroom as well. I have 2 items for the green ballroom. So if I put this sign out in front of the blue ballroom and named the viewer PC, or the viewer itself, not the viewer PC, blue ballroom, it would show this data. All right, it would automatically grab that from there. And if I wanted to go and make this the green ballroom and play it, now it's going to show those other things. So one database, one presentation, one data provider, showing information in an infinite number of places, really, as much as your database can handle. And of course, if I wanted to go and add something, you know, I could just go, and if you remember going through there, you may not remember, but it was set to refresh every 10 seconds. So now I'm going to go and set this for 6 p.m. I'm going to save it, and it's going to show up here, and then in 10 seconds it's going to show up on that preview screen. And that's live data, All right, so this becomes very important. It's a way to leverage your everyday working tools to go and update and keep your signage fresh. Okay, so and you can connect to all sorts of things: text files, XML files, access databases, Microsoft Excel. You know, they're the natural tools that everybody uses. So you would have someone go and create, you know, a presentation template and put certain things in there, and then have everybody pretty much do their everyday job in tools that they use every day. No special knowledge needed to keep your content fresh and up to date. So that was just one example. You know, for instance, this one here, this is weather, and actually kind of cool because there's a special query language out there for Yahoo called YQL. And if you'll notice, I have a little SQL query here. You could have easily done this with just an RSS feed, but I get more granularity, and I can get individual things for the forecast here, and I can go and show that forecast, and this is for Hawthorne, where I am right now, and that's showing our actual weather. That's our weather forecast for the next 5 days. And what's even cooler about this is now I've created this, all right, and one of the reasons I did this with this, by the way, is if you look at this, oops, sorry about that. You'll notice that I was able to just use my zip code instead of one of those special weather IDs. So you can create this and just use your zip code instead of going and finding out one of those location IDs. What's even better about this is I created this presentation, and now I can go and I can stick it into another presentation. So I don't have to go and do this over and over and over again. I can go and grab the presentation in a presentation element. Okay, presentation and page, and I'm just going to drag that out here, and I'm going to go and grab that presentation, and there it goes. It's in my presentation. So I've created it once, and I can use it over and over and over again. So now I'm going and I'm making 2 database connections. I'm going to connect to Microsoft Exchange for my door card, and I'm going to show the current weather forecast for everything. So in this way, you can go again and reuse your work over and over and over again without having to go and create something special for different applications. So very, very powerful way to do signage. Any questions on this so far?
We do have questions. One thing I want to say, I know we're starting to, people are starting to drop off the call. We were due to go until noon Eastern time. So please just take the survey when you leave, if you wouldn't mind. But Chris, do you want to give it another 10 minutes so we can get through some of these questions? Because I think there's some really good ones.
I will stay. I will stay as long as they want to stay.
All right, excellent. So there are licensing questions. So first one, are the additional data sources like CNN covered with plug-in licensing?
PADS gives you the ability to connect to those things. The licensing for all of those things are all up to CNN and Yahoo and AccuWeather, and so it is not included in here. The ability to get to it is what PADS gives you, but if you want to use it in a public display system, you definitely need to talk to them about that, so no.
Okay. There's a question, mainly implementing the YQL. So I'm not sure I understand that question. Chris, do you get that?
Mainly
implementing the YQL.
YQL was what I just mentioned that I use for that weather feed. It's a Yahoo query language, and you could find that in the Yahoo developer information. And in fact, it'll even give you lists of open database tables that you can get to, and how to use the YQL language. In fact, there's even a little query writing tool that will show you the results of your query. So I'm not a YQL expert. It's something that I happened upon, and it served my purpose to be able to get this very granular data from their weather forecast. So I'm not sure I understood the question, but hopefully I've answered it.
Okay, okay. Can you show how some intelligent content decisions can be made with database feeds?
How intelligent content decisions
can be made with database feeds.
I'm not sure I really understand.
Okay, so Philip, you asked that question. If you wouldn't mind, maybe you can expand a little bit. So they may need rules, Peter said. Okay, let's move on to the next question, see if we get some clarification. Let's keep going. Okay. We have a question about, I'm sorry, I'm going backwards now, so we stayed on topic. Do you have a server version for VMware?
It will run on VMware, but it's not specifically made for VMware. In fact, we have a couple of installations out there now that are running in virtualized environments. So it runs fine on VMware, especially in PADS4 with the new licensing. You know, in PADS 3.1, for those of you who are familiar, it actually required a licensed dongle, which was sometimes problematic in a virtual environment. But PADS4 should run fine in a virtual environment. As I mentioned, we already have it, but it's not made specifically for VMware or any virtual environment, but it'll run fine there.
Okay. Does each screen need a scheduler? This person was just slightly confused by the licensing answer.
Absolutely not. So let's go take a look at the scheduler real quick. If you'll notice, I have a couple of viewers on my left-hand side there. Those are the destinations. So those are individual viewers that are on my network, and I can control them all and send content to all of them from this one scheduler. So we were talking about multiple schedulers before, and that would only be for people who are going to be scheduling specific things. So let's say, you know, I was in charge of this sign and Kim was in charge of that sign. We want multiple schedulers. But you can control your entire network from a single scheduler if you like.
Okay. I'm going back down to the bottom of the question. Sorry, it's taking me a second. I want to make sure, again, I stay on topic. So different content to different screens with one scheduler.
Yes. Yes, you can schedule different presentations to different screens from the same scheduler. Absolutely. That's the whole point. The whole point of the scheduler is to be able to manage the schedule for your entire network. Again, remember we were talking about the grouping aspect of things. So I can go and I can group, you know, all my West Coast locations because they're going to be showing signage for out there, and I can group all of my East Coast signs in a group, and I can send content to each of those groups. I can send an individual presentation to every viewer if I wanted to, all through that one scheduler.
Great. Can you schedule to groups as well as viewers?
Absolutely. That's what I was just mentioning before. I don't believe I have any groups created here, but when you go and you look at the scheduler, all right, so I'm just going to go and look at a simple schedule, and I'll just grab that weather thing again, and it's going to ask me the viewer or group I want to send it to. So I only have viewers in here right now, but if I had scheduled, if I had created groups, I could schedule that presentation to the group. So that one presentation would go to all of the viewers in that particular group.
Okay, so So the scheduler is a desktop application that is licensed specific to the user, not the schedule itself or the screens, kind of like how the designer is licensed.
Yes, it's licensed as part of you can basically get one license key for your entire installation, and your schedulers, designers, and viewers are all part of that. So again, while you're logging into your particular server.
Can you nest scheduled content within another schedule?
Nest content within another schedule. I'm not quite sure I understand. I mean, there is a way to, I'm not sure I understand. You can go and create a schedule like this for a playlist of presentations. So in other words, instead of doing what I did before, which was do a simple schedule where I can go and put a single presentation on screen, I can go and do a playlist of schedules, so I can of presentations. So I can grab, you know, this one and this one, all of those, okay, these 6 presentations, and I can schedule them all. And basically what's going to happen is each of those presentations will play one after another. Does that answer the question?
We'll wait and see if that answered the question. I have another content question. So can content be scheduled in a frame with metadata?
That would actually be Peter, do you understand that question? Can content be scheduled in a frame with metadata?
All right, so we're waiting for Peter to answer. So somebody asked a question about official training after you purchase the product.
We do offer training. I think that I forget how much it is, but I believe that there is a 1-hour training session included.
Great.
To get you up and running and started.
So the answer to the metadata question is not now. No.
Okay.
Okay.
And I mean, if the customer or the person who asked that question is asking so that you can get proof of play information, there are other things. So if you want to get proof of play, in the other menu selection of every element is log element statistics info, and what that'll do will track and record every time that item played and the duration of its play. If that was the question. I'm not sure that it was, because metadata could be used for many different things, but if that's the goal, there's a way to track each element for its proof of play, basically.
Okay, all right. So I have somebody asking to see a feature. So if somebody would like to see the reflection option in PADS4.
Sure. I'm going to go back here, and I'll just drag this down. We'll go and grab an image. Go grab from the file. Where's my pretty logo? Okay. Oops. I smushed our logo. Sorry about that.
Hey, stop. Branding police.
Okay. So you can, do side, top, bottom, and so on. But there we go. And you can, play with the depth and the offset and so on. Okay, and you can tell it. Would they like to see it on something? I mean, I could do it on text as well, you know.
Okay. Let's see if they answer.
Would help if I actually spelled it right, huh? I made that much bigger. Oop, come on. There we go. More questions?
Oh, yeah. Can you replace X amount of stills and keep the previous stills attributes?
When you say the previous stills attributes, are we talking about sizes and things like that, or which attributes you could actually go and run images from a database playlist, which is an interesting thing, and they will come up in that same frame that you're using, and it will keep the like transitions and things like that, or if there's a reflection or other things, and it'll keep feeding in there. But if you've set all those reflections, you know, something in here, so if we have a reflection here, I can go and I can change this image out to something else. I'll just go grab this, okay, and it did keep all of its attributes. So the answer is yes. I mean, if you're going to change them on a frequent basis, it might be a good idea to keep things in a database with references to where the images are, and this way you can update it without having to go in and do this. You can just change your list in the database, and that includes something like an Excel spreadsheet or an Access database, or you know, even, you know, SQL and things like that. But yes, it'll keep those attributes.
Okay, great. And we are at the last question. Do you support Linux players?
No, this will run on Windows. It is a Windows program, so all the applications run on Windows.
Excellent. Okay, well, for all of you who are left, thank you for sticking it out, and I think that was excellent. We got lots of great questions, lots of good fodder. Again, you know, we're all available to answer questions that come up after this and for more demos if needed. So, you know, our door is always open.
Absolutely. It's very important. If you guys are interested in getting into this a little more deeply, and specifically for the applications that you want to do, we do one-on-one webinars, generally last about an hour, and you're welcome to contact us to do that so that we can address some of your specific needs in a more intimate sort of setting. But I thank everyone for coming by and sticking with us.
Hey, I'm so sorry, Chris. I'm just going to interrupt you 1 second. Peter just actually sent me another answer. He says, with VirtualBox, Linux is supported.
Right. Okay. So similar to what we said about running on a Macintosh, running it on actually on OS X. The only way to do that would be with a virtual machine.
Okay. All right. Great. All right, everybody. Thank you very much, and have a wonderful day. Thank you, Chris, for spending the time with us.
Thanks, everybody.